For me, like I was not the right person to create all the system. I had to go get the right person who was already on my team and was awesome at it. And I could say this, right? And they could put it into a system.
Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sales Made Simple podcast. Your host, Joshua Gillow. And this week, we're going to focus on mastering success. If you don't have systems, you won't know success. But if you know what systems are, you'll know success. So Katie and Eric are back on here. They wrote the book, The Road to Seven Figures, Your Guide to Home Service Success. So guys, welcome back.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I loved our conversation last week about, if you hadn't listened to it, listeners, go back and listen, about taking control of your company when your company's running you, what to do about it, how to claim your time and sanity back. We talk about things like the fear of losing and how to balance energy and also how to manage your time. So these are all things we've learned as entrepreneurs along our journey that were tough lessons that we're now hopefully helping people with as well. But this week, focusing on systems. My main takeaways today are, why systems are important to business. I know listeners out there, I'm sure you heard 1,000 million trillion times that you need systems in your business. And that just sounds like, well, possibly it sucks. Like, I don't know what I do. How am I ever going to create a system around it? We're going to talk more about that today. And also which systems you should start with in order to scale. That's an important piece. And then why knowing your numbers and key KPIs, key performance indicators, is critical in business. Man, this is going to be a painful one for me to talk about because I didn't like KPIs, guys. They were way too real for me. I just wanted to spray and pray, if you will, just go out there and work as hard as I could and keep my eyes closed until the end of the year and then take one eye and look into the books and see if there's any money in there because I love doing what I was doing, but I didn't know if I was making any money. And I tell you right now, that is not the way you run a business. That's something that needs to be looked at and that fear needs to be faced, the Band-Aid ripped off, and you start owning a business, not a hobby. So guys, I'm excited to get started.
All right, let's do it.
Those are some good topics right there. So it's going to be a good conversation.
Those are the ones that are hard for most people to take it to the next level. This is where they get tripped up.
Yep. This is the bottleneck for most business owners. This is the bottleneck specifically in outdoor living, landscaping, hardscaping, any home service really, because most of the time it's us, right? We are the product, we are the service, and we can't get out of our own path because we just enjoy the spotlight too much, or we just figure that no one can do what we do. So how are you ever going to replicate that? But so today, guys, listeners, if that sounds like you, we're going to dive into that. So I want to ask you guys, I know you guys, own companies, you've done really well for yourself. When did systems start becoming something important to your companies? If you can give us just a little bit of background on what you guys do so we get a sense of where those systems come from, and why not continue to just keep freaking winging it? I mean, come on, that's a lot easier, right? It takes no sense. So why don't you guys dig into that?
Oh my gosh. Okay, first of all, if my team listens to this, they will laugh at me because I have a couple of key players that have been with us for a really long time. We started our business 12 years ago, and they came on, in the first year or two, and one of the first things they're saying is like, we really got to have a system for this. And I thought that was like a swear word. I was like, I hate that word. Like,
yeah, you mean your way, right? No, this is my business.
I'm like, all right, make a system if you want to, but I don't want to talk about that. Like, it was just for so long. I just gave him so much pushback on it. And if I could turn back time, right, it's one of the first things I would do when I start my business. I waited way too long to put systems in. And we're 12 years in, right? And we are constantly catching up with systems or updating systems. The difference is instead of fighting them now, I'm like, I love them. So
yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing. Katie, what kind of business are you in?
So I own a couple digital marketing agencies, Get Found First and Spot On Solutions. Started them both about the same time, and they just kind of grew together. Spot On Solutions, we had a client who owned a cleaning and restoration business that was working with us at Get Found First. And he started referring his friends to us, right? Eric was one of them that owned a restoration company. And pretty soon we have a bunch of home service companies and we realized, marketing looks a little bit different for home service businesses. And we started a separate agency called Spot On Solutions that for the last 12 years, we've just worked specifically with the home service industry to grow your online presence. That's what we do. But I'm telling you, the systems thing, I hear it from every single client in every single industry. Eric and I come across it with every entrepreneur we're working with. It is just, we just have to do it. And I'll tell you, when I came on board with doing it is when it just became too hard not to. It was just too hard. All of a sudden, I got 50 people and 2 agencies and multi-million-dollar businesses. And I'm just like, I cannot do this without systems.
Yeah. How about you, Eric?
We had a point where we Larry and I were kind of like solopreneurs together. Larry's my business partner and my college roommate. And then we got some coaching. And I think when we started coaching, we were probably at like $250,000 a year, right? We were pretty new though. Been in business like a year and a half or 2 years or something. And then we learned how to do referral marketing. And we added $900,000 in the 8 months to the 250. Wow. And that sounds amazing, except that I think $900,000 was spent to do the extra 900,000 because we had because we had no systems and we were so inefficient that it was chaos, right? So I tell everybody this, I had a moment and we were hiring and, all this. And we used to do a thing because we were doing demo on wet houses all day. We're a restoration company. And we used to have to run a dump trailer to the dump every day full of wet drywall so that we could have it for the next day. And every day I could sit at my desk and hear all the team trying to explain to whoever the new person who got deemed as doing the dump run to go. And they'd be like, oh yeah, go down this road and bang a left at the 7-Eleven. And it was all like word of mouth. And inevitably, every day it was like 2 hours to get a dump run done. And it was just making me angry and it was needless, right? So I had an amazing office manager. She was like 19 years old, Leslie. I said, Leslie, this was our first system. I said, this is pissing everybody off so badly, right? Like this is a thing. And, and that became my mantra. You asked about, building system, where to start. I always say, whatever's costing you the most money or making you the most angry, that's the system you build next. Right. I
love that.
And I said, can you just grab a pad of paper and your phone and take the best guy we have who knows how to go to the dump. And I want you to take a picture of the truck. I want you to take have a video on how to hitch up the trailer. I want every single step. I want a map. And the next morning she handed me a little 3-ring binder with literally every single thing that you needed to do. And I was like, great, get the newest kid, the dumbest kid, whatever, hand him the book and tell him to go to the dump. Right. And, look, I got a business full of 19-year-olds, right? So, And that kid was back in like 35 minutes. Wow. And that was my light bulb moment, because I was losing all this money on, what's the most expensive thing in a service company? Labor.
It's labor.
And I'm losing labor. So all of a sudden I'm like, okay, what's the next thing we fix? And, then we started getting into job costing and all that. And what we did, Josh, at the time, because I was still out in the field doing work too, quite a bit, or at least doing estimating. I would go to work all day long, and then everybody would leave. I'd go eat dinner, and I'd come back every single night for 2 hours when nobody was there, from like 7 to 9 p.m. and just build systems every day.
Yeah,
and I did that for 2 years straight until I systematized essentially everything. And that's what it's going to take.
He literally slept in the office for like 2 years, and
pretty much
pounding it all out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, look, I learned, this is, I think, where people go wrong with systems. Number one, I can build systems at warp speed. I can implement about one a month, maybe.
Yeah.
That first year that I was working on systems, I believe we fully implemented 8, but it literally took away like 80% of the problems, right? Yeah. Like, people are like, they always look at it and go, well, there's like 2,000 things that happen in this company. It's like, yeah, not really. There's like 15 things that are ruining your company. Just systematize those first. Like, we can get to which way the toilet paper goes later. Like, we don't need to worry about whether it's to go over or under. Like, let's figure out how to get these jobs done.
Why do you think so many companies stay away from starting systems? Why do you think they're such, I don't know, like a negative focus on that kind of thing? Like, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to spend the time. Why do you think most stay away?
Time. I think guys and gals who own businesses just think like, I don't have the time. And they don't look at the bigger picture of, well, how much time could I save if I just suck it up, buttercup, and come in at night and do it?
Yep.
Katie, what about you?
I think the other reason is personality style. Like, it's not just inherent in my personality style to be detail oriented and sit down and map something like that. It's way more comfortable just telling somebody or doing it or whatever, right? So to actually, like, that's a skill that I didn't have, quite frankly. I'm like, it was a really pivotal moment for me, and maybe we can talk about this at some point, because I think it was for you too, Eric. We talk about it in the book, but as my company started to grow really, really fast, and I was like, we had chaos, right? We had no systems. I have all these people, and then I discovered like DISC and personality behavioral, and I got really, really educated on my own personality first, what I was great at, what my blind spots were, and what my team was really great at. For me, like, I was not the right person to create all the systems. I just was not the right person. I had to go get the right person who was already on my team and was awesome at it. And I could say this, right? And they could put it into a system. So for me, it was just knowing I wasn't the right person to do that. My business partner right now, he looks at, there's a lot of things he does that nobody else in the company knows how to do. Like, he does them. He's the one that has to help put that together, but it's not his personality style to spell that out in a way that's going to make sense to somebody. So we got to get it out of our heads. If you're the person that knows the system or that does the system, you're just going to find a way to get it out of your head and get it available to everybody else. And sometimes we need somebody else helping us to do that.
That's a great point.
Yeah. Yep.
I also 100%. Think, to Katie's point too, because we're talking DISC, and I like DISC as well. A lot of owners have a lot of high I in them, which makes them really good at growing businesses as far as getting out there in the community. But they do not like to be accountable to anything, so they don't want systems, because that means they have to do them too. My business partner being one of those people, right? The hardest person in our business to get to do the systems was Larry, because Larry felt that his ownership made him exempt. And he and I had many go-arounds of like, no, that means you need to do it more, because you're undermining all the hard work that I'm putting in if you don't do the system to 100% compliance. And that took time. And over time, he totally bought in. But because, like Katie said, his personality is kind of the opposite of that, he didn't like it. He's like, you're going to make me do all of this? I'm like, we're all doing this. This is what we do now.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of the opposite. Like on a Myers-Briggs test, if we're going to talk about personality tests, my thing is called the architect, right? So like, I'm all task, no people. So it's very natural for me to sit and build systems and figure out how they're all going to go together and that. But, then my thing was, okay, great, I built these systems, but here's where the rubber meets the road. I have to get everybody to buy into why we're doing it, what the benefit is, that it's going to take us a month or two to get it going. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to keep going. I'm going to ask for input. One of the things is I would build a system, but dude, I wasn't in the field doing the work all the time, right? Things change. Yeah. And I would say, okay, guys, we're going to make a system for, this thing. I'm going to give it to you. I want you to go break it. Go break it for 2 weeks. we're going to have a meeting and you guys give me your feedback on what I did wrong, right? Because a system that, a world that you get other people to help you build is a world that they buy into. So you can't do it top down and just, well, look, I tried, it didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Or I told them what to do and they didn't listen. They won't follow my system, exactly. Right? And it's like, hello, that was for me too. I was like, hello, wait a minute here. What if I had them create the systems and I watched? What if I said, hey, we need this system. How would you guys approach this? Next thing you know, they're writing stuff down, all of that. And I'm like, holy crap, they're actually following it because they made it. It's so simple. As long as I approve it, they made it. That's simple. That's the buy-in. That's how you get others to follow them.
I think, Josh, too, you're also telling them that they're important and the business can't run without them. They're a key element. Look, Katie and I live like 2 hours apart. I've been to Katie's office many times. They have an amazing culture there. Like when you walk in the building, you know right away, good culture, right? Why? Because she and Michael involve everybody in everything.
Yeah.
Like it's a team. It's a true team. That's what I see. As a client, I'm still a client today. Have been for, I guess, 12 years, Katie, right? I mean,
for a minute.
We're like client number 10 or something. I don't know what number.
No.
Nice.
Yeah. You came through in the original gang right there. So,
So, you have to build I think along with the systems, you have to build a culture to get everybody to buy into that we want to be a systematized business.
And also there's the accountability side of all this too, right? There's accountability. So all the systems in the world, you can have them all in place in beautiful little binders and all set and everything's organized. But if no one's following them and no one's holding each other accountable, then it just isn't going to work.
That's the other word I hate. So there's the two words I hate. Accountability. That's it right there.
Boy.
They're hard.
Yeah.
I'm an I personality too, like Eric was talking about, right? So I want to rally the troops and get people excited and go do it. And I also want them all to like me. So I
that's a problem.
It's so weird. Like you got to have systems and you got to have accountability. Sometimes we just have to recognize as entrepreneurs, that is going to be a blind spot for me. Yeah. And so I've got to figure out how I'm going to accommodate for it. For me, I've got some really great people that will put me in line, right? They'll check me and they'll be like, hey, and you got to do this or you got to do that. But mostly it's a personal decision, as so many of the things in the entrepreneur journey really is. It's like, okay, am I going to get good at this? Because I'm going to sit down and be really honest with myself. I know I'm not naturally good at this. So how am I going to make some allowances for that? What is it going to look like? How am I going to hold myself accountable to the things that I know are important for the company? Because people might not see you putting in all the effort. People will say all the time, they think I'm one of the most organized people they've ever met. I'm like, no, I suck at organization. I suck at it. But at some point in time, whenever something gets painful enough, we change it. It gets painful enough, you make a system. It gets painful enough, you learn the skill, right? And so I think if something is painful for you, you probably have a blind spot right there and a skill that you need to work on or learn or have a coach help with.
Can I make one more point, Josh, too, in kind of what Katie's saying? So, when you start to implement systems, number one, I think the first thing you should do before you say you're going to systematize your business is go read Michael Gerber's E-Myth, right? That is 100%. the book, right? But then I think it's setting this expectation for yourself and your team that we don't move off working on implementing a new system, and we don't move to the next one until that one is completely 100% compliant for everybody for a while. If anybody's read the E-Myth, this really struck me. I've read the E-Myth several times. There's a portion where they're talking about a whiteboard in a conference room. I don't know if you guys remember this or not. And then every time people would erase it, the blue ink would smudge on the white wall, and Gerber would lose his mind. And anybody who's met Gerber would know that he really can lose his mind too. So anyway, they then they were like, okay, well, let's put tape around it, and then the tape will get on the thing, and that didn't work. And then they put a wooden border. And the point being was, they kept iterating until they found a way that everybody could erase the board every single time without getting blue ink on the wall. And then they moved to the next system. That to me is where I see in my clients, that's where they fail, because they go, oh, hey, Katie, we got a new system today. Here it is. And they hand them a piece of paper, especially technicians who hate reading. Like, that's not going to work. And then they just think like it's miraculously going to happen. And you have to be super intentional about making it happen.
Oh, 100% for sure, Eric. And it's the time, right? We don't have time. Business owners are just don't have enough time. It's just trying to put the fires out, keep Mrs. Jones happy, take care of all the employees, payroll, all of that stuff. You just don't have time. So, listeners out there, if that's you and you just don't have the time, it's time to change some of that. If you actually want to take this thing from a hobby into a business, it's going to require spending additional time doing things you may or may not want to do. And like Katie said, maybe you're not the one to do it. I love creating systems. I love watching people create systems more. So,
I love watching people follow systems the most.
Yeah,
true.
I think you asked earlier, Josh, that like, why don't people do it? I think this is an ego thing, right? I think there's an element of, I wrote an article in one of our restoration periodicals for this, that people like to be both me included, right? They want to be the owner wants to be the hero and then the victim. So, they don't put systems in place. There's all kinds of problems. And then the phone call inevitably comes to the office. Oh, we got a problem at the Smith job. And I stand up and go, oh, go fix that. And I get in my truck and I drive across town. And now I get to be the smartest guy in the room and go fix the problem. So I just got an endorphin rush because I'm smarter than everybody else. And then I drive back to the office and hold court in the front office with the admin team about what a victim I am, that I have to leave my desk and go be the smartest person in the room. And they give me another endorphin rush of, oh, poor Eric, his life's so hard. And I literally was at one point in my life addicted to that. That was my drug of choice. And I don't think that's uncommon for entrepreneurs.
Nope.
I just don't.
I think you hit something big right there. And I'm sure listeners, some of them are squirming in their seats right now as you're saying that, because that was my story, right? I was like, oh, the bigger the problem, great, I can go out and solve the problem. Then you come back and, oh my God, I can't believe we have this problem. I can't believe I had to take my time. I mean, you're saying the same thing. And I'm like, if two of us have this problem, and I'm sure Katie probably could tell us a couple of, there's three hands, then this is a pretty common thing. Yeah. It's a real thing.
I would say, honestly, the road to 7 figures, right? There's a reason why it's a crazy number that only 5% of entrepreneurs make it to $1 million, right? But this issue right here, this issue is one of the big ones. So if you want to get to that $1 million and beyond, because I'll tell you, once you hit the 7 figures, right, you're just going after the next 7 immediately. And the same challenge is there. Like, you're going to see all of these same things we're talking about, 7 figures and beyond, all along the way. So you might as well get good at them now and get there faster, right? But this one right here, this one creeps. This one creeps in all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. So guys, I'd love to, as we wrap up here, talk about KPIs, key performance indicators. And I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that this was something that I really, really, really didn't like, because it was way too real for me. I wanted to be high on hopium all the time, that everything was going to be perfect. And I'm just working like crazy. And because of that work, I deserve a big old fat profit at the end of the year. And I would, like I said, open one eye, look in QuickBooks, like, oh, shut it. No, can't do that. No, maybe next month will be better. And I stayed away from those. But since I've matured now in business after all these years, thank goodness, now we're constantly looking at that, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and not just myself, other professionals as well. And so I'm curious, when you start building systems, what are some of the KPIs that you found in the beginning that's important to track?
Eric, you're so good at this. I think just take it, man. You are so good at this.
Well, for me, Josh, it was always, so I had a carpet cleaning and restoration business. There were 4 that I cared about really at the beginning, right? It's how many calls am I getting a day, a week, a month, right? So how much inbound traffic, which Katie was driving with her digital marketing and Larry's driving and his team by knocking on doors, right? So like I'm judging, is my marketing working? Is the phone ringing enough? Then my next one is, how many of those calls did I turn into a face-to-face estimate? Because I don't want to be a commodity. I want to send somebody to that front door, make an impression, right? And then, so my estimators, so it's first KPI, how much inbound traffic, second KPI, how many of those turned into a face-to-face estimate, third KPI, how many of those do we close and at what average ticket? And then I would move on to, on the operations side, job costing for every single job costing for every project manager to see their profitability. I mean, I could go on. I'm a believer that every role should have KPIs. Every job description should have their own set of KPIs. And then managers will manage the people through their KPIs. And then I manage everybody through the companies. I don't know if that answered anything or not, but
no, 100%, dude, 100%. Because it's, and what you mentioned, your first 3 examples are all frontline, right? Listeners, listen, it's how many leads coming in, how many appointments set, and then how many closes. Like without that, you don't got a business. And with that, you can make a lot of mistakes, right? Well, so it's really making sure that front line is clean.
Yeah. Because like, let's say I spend a ton of money with Katie doing digital every month, right? I get the phone ringing. Well, what if my CSR is not picking up the phone 50% of the time? All of a sudden, I just dealt with that this morning, by the way. I have a client who's not picking up the phone like they would need to, right? So if I see that they're not converting, now I'm training my CSR or getting a new one or 2, right? Then my estimator, well, what percentage of those are we booking and at what price, right? Do I need a new estimator? Do I need to train that estimator? Like the KPIs are just good for training and managing,
Yep.
The other KPI, I think those are the key ones right there, right? Any of your sales KPIs are so critical. The other one that I always like to keep an eye on, and depending on your industry, if it makes sense or not, but churn, right? Upsells and churn. Like, are we getting more from our clients that already love us? Are we making sure they know all the services that are available so we're not leaving money on the table? How are we asking for that, and how are we tracking how we're getting that? And then the churn. Are we keeping people, right? Are they coming back day after day, month after month, year after year, whatever your business looks like? But the hardest thing to do is just go replace great clients. And so that's another indicator that we always keep a close eye on.
I love it. Yep. I always say when it comes down to this, it's if you're trying to hit a goal, you can set your focus on a goal, look out, and you can probably hit that goal once, right? And then you're like, okay, hit that goal. Now what's next? If you really want to repeat winning, you need systems so you can hit that goal over and over and over again. And that's what a business that lasts a long time, that's profitable, that actually makes a big impact in the world and helps you retire too. Those things are important. And that's where systems are so, so critical. So listeners out there, if you're like, look, this whole system thing is crazy, take Eric's advice and go out and start with the thing that hurts the most, the thing that you're losing the most time or the biggest pain in your ass. Go out there and start systemizing it with your team. Guys, look, how can we possibly systemize this? I remember when we had enclosed trailers with all of our stuff in it. And I remember getting to job sites in the early days and not having all my tools or not having all my supplies because we're out of this. And then we put new edging in there. They forgot the spikes and blah, blah, blah down through. And I'm like, why is this happening? And then bitched about it for the longest time. I can't believe somebody doesn't do this until we actually started putting checklists and systems in place in a, Katie, you're not going to like this, having somebody accountable to it. That's their job to make sure that those things are always there. And then if they're not there, then we know exactly who to go to. And some people enjoy that. I enjoy being accountable.
I was going to say, I was like, here's the kicker to accountability. High performers love accountability. High performers love it because it's like, yeah, I'll do that. Watch this, and that. As soon as you put accountability really in place, this is what I've learned. And this is a hard thing to learn. We put accountability in place and low performers, you're going to get pushback and they're going to check out. And sometimes they're going to choose to leave. That's okay.
Beautiful.
Hurt.
Exactly.
When it happens, right? But it's the best thing that will ever happen to you. High performers are going to raise the bar for you all day long.
Well, I think also having a systematized business is fundamentally more fair to the employee, high performer or low performer. Yeah. If I have a business where my team needs to be able to read my mind at all times and try to discern or decipher what they think I want, that is fundamentally unfair to them. Whereas if I say, hey, go do this, and they have a system, a procedure, a process flow, and they follow it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, I didn't want that. But I can't say that. They did the system, right?
Yeah,
it's also a protection mechanism for them, for not case owners like me who expect you to read my mind.
Yeah.
It's so true. Beautiful thing about systems and accountability and all of this is, and Eric, you can probably speak to this best, but when the day came that Eric had all those in place and his service business is really just kicking, he is prime for acquisition. So if that's what you want, right? When that day came and somebody came and had a conversation with him about, hey, I want to buy your business, right? The business that baby that you've taken care of all along the way, right? On this path to 7 figures and beyond that you've taken care of, it's worth a lot of money. It's worth a lot of money when you've got those things in place.
Well, interesting, when that happened to us, the very first question to me was, how many hours a week do you work in the business? Mm-hmm. And at that time, my answer was like 3.
Yeah.
I mean, I was leaving and coming up here to Utah, like literally 50% of the time I wasn't even there. Right. My team used to drive down the road and honk on me while I was riding my bike in the middle of the day. Like,
didn't try to run you off the road.
Well, and that's an interesting thing though. And I think Katie can speak to this too. It's like, we have this fear that they're going to think I don't do anything, or they're going to be like, why aren't you here with me all day or whatever? And they don't care. Like I made it clear, like the only, way for any of you guys to move up is you move me out. Right. Like, I mean, you don't want me to be here. That actually lowers your ability to keep moving up. So, they used to come to me and be like, hey boss, our only job is to get you out of this building. Perfect. Because you and I
put you out of work.
We both have the same goal then. Yeah, but exactly. If you want to exit for any real money, nobody's buying your job, your hard, crummy job. You better systematize.
100%. They're going to buy the box of systems and the people who run them at the end of the
day. That's really what I love about The Road to 7 Figures. The book we were able to put together is we talk about all that. Like you want to get there. Here are the pieces that you can start working on, and anybody can do it.
And what I love about the way you guys laid the book out is that it starts with you. It starts with the person first, because anybody out there, any listener thinks they're just going to grow a business without growing themselves is got a major rude awakening coming. So you've got to build yourself, coaching, mentoring, go into anything it takes in order to read books, get yourself out there so you can learn, because you got to be growing faster than your business. Then to jump into the business side of things with systems, and then digital marketing, and then into building the team that'll run all of this stuff. You guys break this down in a way that is very useful and very easy for us to understand, as we're still home service providers, as landscapers, hardscapers, and outdoor living pros. So I love the way you do that. You don't just say, hey, here's a digital marketing campaign, learn this. It's like, without you, without the business, without the team, that's wasteful. You get so many times I have people that reach out and say, look, I want to scale my business. I want to grow. I want to hit 1 million, 2 million, 5 million in the next 5 years. And first thing I want to ask is, hey, what do your systems look like right now? Oh, we don't have any systems. We just want the money. I'm like, that's not how this works. Right. So if you want to get past that $1 million line in our world, you've got to, that's when the systems start to become a thing. And one of the first ones is not just in the field. That's an important one, but it's also your front line, your sales side of things. How are you systemizing how you're bringing people through from lead to sale? How are you doing that through a design process? All that. Like, if it's not systemized back to back the same way each and every time, with obviously a flexibility for each client, but if you don't have that in place, you're not going to scale. Because what happens, and I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but listeners, listen close. If you're trying to throw more leads into a broken machine, you just end up with a bigger problem. You don't end up with more money. You might end up with a higher top line revenue, but your net is going to be much less, because if you're throwing it in, you're barely pulling 2 or 3% down. There's a high probability, like Eric said earlier, 900,000 or 800,000 in new business was 900,000 in cost. If you do that, but on scale, ouch, out of business quick. So build the systems first, perfect the machine that produces the revenue you want and the profit you want and the cash flow you want, and then scale it. Don't try to scale a broken machine.
Greg McCown says in his book, Essentialism, he also says, to go with everything you just said, because you said that so good, Josh, but he says, protect the asset, right? Yeah. Also, while we're doing all of this stuff, and it is an extreme sport like we talked about in the last episode, and it's a lot, but you have to protect the asset, and the asset is you. So make sure that you're doing those things to give yourself the best chance for success by getting out and doing some exercise, remembering what your priorities are, having your systems in place that the team can grow into, but all along the way, like, you have to protect the asset.
Yep. Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate you, and I could talk for days on systems. I love those things. So, but anyway, listeners, these guys will be back with us. Eric and Katie will be back with us next week. We're going to talk about how to stop wasting money and transform your marketing with these game-changing, these simple strategies that you can change the way you look at marketing. I know this is Katie's wheelhouse. That's why I love to have her on here too. So we're going to jump deep into that. But today we focused on why systems are important in business, which systems you should start with and scale. So the one that's pissing you off the most, that problem, systemize it, and then keep systemizing things. And pretty soon you're going to look back and be like, holy crap, I don't have to go out and yell at people anymore. They're going through these systems. It's amazing. It's worth the time. Trust me. And then also the KPIs you should be watching as you're moving forward. So Eric, Katie, thank you for coming on and sharing out of the book. And I can't wait to talk to you more next week.